You guys got one sport?
If some of the rumors coming out of the NCAA are true, U of A is not gonna have a basketball team after next year.
That's what this guy that played college hoops too, and he said that he thinks it could be a life.
How come?
No, they're not gonna do anything to it.
Really? So now I just heard the opposite.
Because of the
Yeah.
scandal?
From
the back door?
From my daughter that worked at the NCAA, I'll tell you they're not gonna do anything to it. That's why they self-imposed this.
Well, see, the problem is it's not only just the NCAA they gotta worry about. The program has been ruined because it's gone to a one and done, get them into the, into the pros team. It's a dead program.
Most of these guys will stay. I don't think there's anybody
Well,
that's
that
gonna
team is-
leave
yeah.
that's currently, well, the two of the foreigners might, but since they get all the year back anyway, it's
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll say yes.
if Kansas had 15 level one violations and did
In
not.
2 minutes. Well, at some point, that's the other thing you have to do, is get rid of the NCAA because they won't enforce their own rules.
Well,
Until it becomes quite obvious that they have to.
yeah, well, that's a misnomer. NCAA is the president. I mean, it's their own, they run their own organization.
Yeah.
That's why there is no like other, except for like the executive director. But all the rules are implemented by the presidents, athletic directors, coaches.
Yeah.
Like EIA.
Yes.
And don't get me started on the AI.
Right. Just, right. Yeah. He's right in there for a few years.
Mr. Kramer, whenever you're ready.
All right. You ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you have invited
Got
us.
the overcoat on
Yeah,
today.
the overcoat, so I didn't wanna.
That's the first time I was able to break out the overcoat today.
Yeah.
Nice.
It is.
All right, with this new lovely gavel, thank you. Good evening. We will call to order this regular board meeting on Tuesday, January 26, 2021 at 5 p.m. I'm gonna make sure I say that. Of the governing board held in the Daniel Fontes Governing Boardroom District Office by 70 Camino Lito Collegio. And would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Mr. John Hayes, if you could lead us, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under the flag, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Mr. Rene Ramirez.
Here.
Ms. Susan Fobian.
Here.
Mr. John Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Brad Beach.
Present.
And myself, Joel Kramer. We have a quorum. All members are attending this board meeting. We all move on then to adoption of the agenda. Mr. Verdugo.
No recommended changes, thank you.
Do I hear a motion then to approve the agenda as is?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please now say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number C is call to the public,
No call.
which it appears we have nobody in our audience for any call to the public, so we don't have that. All right, we move to number 2, which are presentations, and number A is bond and SFB update. Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. As we had mentioned in the previous board meeting, that we would try to come monthly with some, not only financial, but then when things start to move, we would also ask ADM to come in and share what the progress is with the bond and SFB facilities and how that is going. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer and Ben from ADM, and then we have a presentation, and then later in the agenda, we also have the bid recommendation. So I'm going to turn it over to them now. Jennifer, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right. I'm going to do my best here. The video is probably about a minute delayed from the audio, so I'm hoping that you guys have a PowerPoint up in front of you that you are looking at. Yes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. All right, thank you for having me here this evening. With me here today is Brian Crawford, one of our other project architects at ADM Group, and I am Jennifer Westcombe, Director of Architecture at ADM Group. Tonight I'm going to be walking you through a PowerPoint presentation that will touch on several different things. One is our Rio Rico High School SFB project update, the Performing Arts Center contractor recommendation, and finally an update on the bond projects. What I'm going to start with first is a review of our bid process that we went through for the SFB projects and the Performing Arts Center project. You are probably all aware this is from two different funding sources. SFB provides funds for a portion of these projects, and the Performing Arts Center is a bond-funded project. Next slide. So back in July of last year, we did a contractor bid solicitation for the SFB-funded Rio Rico campus additions and renovations and the bond-funded Rio Rico PAC renovation. So we had a select bidder solicitation from July 1st through July 29th of 2020. This was basically an invitation for contractors to express their willingness to bid on our future project that would be coming out. There were 3 contractors approved for bidding during this process, and those 3 contractors were Concord Construction, Lloyd Construction, and SD Crane. Then in November of last year, we had an official invitation to bid solicitation. At this point, drawings were issued to the 3 bidding contractors, and they had from November 12th to December 16th to provide their low bid cost estimates for the 2 projects, which we call the SFB projects, and the second project is the PAC. Next slide. So the next slide basically gives an overview of the scope of work that was for the SFB renovations and additions at the Rio Rico main campus. In just a really quick summary, this included a expansion of the cafeteria, new media center, several classroom buildings, several classrooms, and some specialty classrooms like sports medicine. Next slide. The second half of the SFB projects was a new building at the agricultural site that contained classrooms for the agricultural labs and welding and diesel mechanics. Next slide. This slide represents the result of the bidding for the main campus portion of the SFB renovations. So you can see here that we have the 3 bidders, Concord, Lloyd, and SD Crane, and their respective dollar amounts for what we call the base bid and our bid alternates. Basically, the base bid is the minimum that we would want to build for the project, and the bid alternates are kind of like menu items to say, yes, we want this, and yes, we want this, but no, we can't afford to do this, etc. As you can see, the apparent low bidder for this particular portion of the bidding was SD Crane. Next slide. This slide here shows the bid results for the agricultural site portion of the SFB renovations. Again, SD Crane was the apparent low bidder for this part of the project. Next slide. What this slide does is summarize the SFB portion of the bid. So as the previous slides had shown, we had a main campus total and an agricultural site total. total bid for SFB projects was $7,561,510. The SFB allocation that has been given to the Santa Cruz School District for Rio Rico High School was only $4,346,652. So as you can see, there was a shortfall of $3,214,858. At this time, letters have been sent to the senator and representative and the school facilities board director and board members to request that additional funding be allocated to this project. It is undetermined at this time if additional funding will be approved and when. So at this time, the SFB portions of the work are on hold until we hear more from them. Their next board meeting is February 3rd. We're hoping to get some sort of statement at that time from them. Let's move to the next slide. Now I will focus on the PAC renovations and the bidding associated with that. I am going to let Brian Crawford walk you through a little bit of what the PAC renovation and additions were. And then just to remind you, this portion of the work comes from a separate funding source, which is bond funded, which is completely controlled by the district. It does not have any outside sources like SFB that we have to work with. So it's completely decisions made by the district to move forward with this project. Next slide. Brian?
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Hopefully everyone's looking at the floor plan of the PAC that we put together. It has some color to it. And I'd like to talk about some of the areas of the color and the overall plan itself. So the PAC, obviously we know it is the existing media center. We're going to be renovating that, pretty much a complete interior gut project redo, and we're going to create a new seating area, which will be tiered seating, a large stage area towards the back. On the right side, we have what we call the back of house, which will have some makeup rooms, some restrooms for the performances. Towards the front of the PAC, we have the lobby, and then you see in yellow, that'll be our Hall of Fame display cases. We also have some seating there. We have our men's and women's restrooms, as well as a family-oriented restrooms. And then we move over to the left where we have some stagecraft area, and that is all encompassed, that is all within the envelope of the existing media center, the new PAC. In addition to that, we are also adding the area in green, which will be our new concessions building, or concessions room, and then it also has a storage room behind that so that they have places to put all their sticks, chips, whatever. And then we also have the area in purple or blue, which is going to be a covered canopy, and then it's going to have an open side, so it's just like, again, just a roof, and they'll have some open spaces. That'll be an outdoor stagecraft area. That space will also have some fencing with some gates to make sure it's locked up and able to stay secure. And part of this project, we're trying to keep these two off of, we're trying to keep this roof structure off of the existing buildings. So you see the little plan to the left where we have some orange, that'll be new footings that'll be going through the lower level, and we have to remove some flooring there, and we're building new column footings. Next slide. So on this slide is a exterior rendering of the new, what would be the new cafeteria. This is part of the SFB project. To the left will be the new media center, the new PAC. We have a little ticket window on that PAC, and we have the little brand new canopy roof that'll house over top of that. Next slide. So on this one here, we have our, this is a lobby shot, another rendering of the lobby for the new PAC. You can see here the drinking fountain, some of the seating areas, and the ceiling that we'll be doing in there. You also see some more seating on the right side.
results from, again, the same three contractors. SD Crane was, again, the apparent low bidder. The district, because they knew that they had the funding, they had control of the funding to be able to move forward with this project, allowed us to move forward with some negotiations with SD Crane to validate the pricing, make sure everything was included that needed to be. We made a couple of design adjustments and also added a contingency to cover any unforeseens that may come along during the process. So at the end of the day, the new negotiated low bid price with SD Crane was $2,997,491. Therefore, the recommended bidder for this Performing Arts Center renovation portion of the project only is SD Crane. This is another agenda item later on in this meeting that will be discussed in more detail. Next slide. This is the next part of our presentation. I am going to be showing you some photographs of some of the completed bond projects to date that have been done. This first slide addresses the removal of two modular buildings at the district office and Quadamundi Middle School. These were older buildings that were no longer in use and needed to be removed. The scope of the work included hazardous material abatement and then the physical removal of the buildings themselves. And these pictures show you what's left after the buildings are gone. Next slide. This next slide basically shows new bleachers at Quadamundi Middle School. The bleachers that were there previously have been condemned and they were no longer safe. Those bleachers have been removed, and this is a photograph of the new set of bleachers that's there today. Next slide. This slide starts a series of slides that shows the progress of our paving projects. A large portion of the bond money was allocated for new paving of parking lots and crack sealing of parking lots. These three photographs show some work that's been done at Rio Rico High School. The top two photographs are the visitors lot out in front of the high school that has been completely repaved and restriped. The lower photograph is of the lower lot by the fields, and that parking lot was crack sealed. Next slide. These three photographs are pictures of the new access road behind Quadamundi Middle School that will connect Quadamundi Middle School to the Rio Rico High School fields. Next slide. This collection of photographs is, again, the three photographs on the left are the new paving project that took place at Calabasas School, where, again, they were completely new paving and new striping. The photograph on the right is the new paving at the food services lot. Next slide. Also included in the bond funds were allocations for new pupil transportation vehicles and a delivery cargo van. So those vehicles have been procured, and these are photographs of the new buses and cargo vans.
Okay, and I get to talk about...
Yeah, next slide.
Sorry. I get to start talking about some of the exciting new projects that are on the boards and still yet pending start. So at the Rio Rico High School courtyard, we had a new shade structure that will be put in place. This slide that you see on this, or the pictures you see on this slide, we're calling this the pinwheel or on the board to have a replacement of the Ramada roof at the Mountain View Elementary School, as well as softball field fencing and new field perimeter fencing around the Rio Rico High School athletics. Next slide. Now that we've said the Rio Rico High School athletics, I'd like to talk about this slide here. This is a shot or a slide showing all of the new work that will be going on at the Rio Rico High School athletic fields. On the right, we'll start over there. You can see where we have a new irrigation tank. We'll have 2 wells that are existing at the Quadamundi campus. Those wells will be used to fill this tank, and that tank will be used for the irrigation of the athletic fields, the grass, and the baseball fields. Also, you can see in red and kind of a light green there, we have a new track and grass infield. That will be the practice fields and soccer fields, and then the track will be a new track surface. We also have to the north of that the new tennis and basketball courts. Also part of the fields will be the new synthetic turf field, which is right there in the center in dark green. And we also have events for the track and field. You can see the clay discus. We also have the shot put, and we have the long jump. And then we have the future. They use that term stressfully. We have the future pool at and then part of the project for the athletics will be the paving and the roads that you see going around these new locations. Also with this is a new irrigation system for the entire field, all the fields and the campus in the back there. All right, next slide. And that concludes our presentation.
Yeah, are there any questions at this time?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer and Brian, and not Ben, but Brian, correct?
Yeah, Ben's actually here now. He did join us.
Oh,
I'm here.
All right, welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Ms. Fovian?
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Just one question that doesn't matter, is just curious. What is the lifespan of those shade structures?
Those had a 15-year warranty on
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, usually about 15 years or so on the fabric. Sorry, we were
collaborating.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's why Ben showed up. You got that answer. Okay, Mr. Hayes.
Yes, I have a couple of questions, actually. In regards to the work for the SFB funding, I noticed that in the documents provided, there wasn't an estimate for the estimate based on the design. How close was the estimates that came, or the bids come in, to the estimates for the engineer or the design team?
So, if I could interject, SFB requires that you have a number of meetings prior to submitting the drawings to the city for review, plan review and permitting. The very first meeting, they have a published schedule that says the architect engineer will supply us with an estimate of what you think this project's going to be. So, early on in the project, and I'm talking probably last July or August, we had our first meeting with SFB, and we provided them with an estimate that at that time showed that we were going to be over budget. We were not aware that it would be $3 million over budget, but I think our estimate said we'd be a couple of $1 million over budget. We wanted to put them on notice. At that time, they said, well, since you're hard bidding the job, we're not going to worry about the budget because the prices are going to be what the prices are going to be. So that was the end of that conversation at that time. And the subject of budget and funding didn't come up again until the month of December, I believe, when they realized that there's just not enough funding to do this, and what's our Plan B. So we talked to them about there's enough funding there that we potentially could do just the agriculture building and wait for funding, additional funding to do the two-story addition on site. We threw that out at them. They kind of nodded and didn't say much, but I think it's bureaucracy. We did everything, we've done everything we can. Like Jennifer said, we've sent letters to the legislatures asking them for additional funding. We sent individual letters to the executive director of SFP through Mr. Verdugo, by the way, and all the board members asking them to consider giving us additional funding. I think today he said got an email or had a conversation with the executive director that said we're not in charge of approving additional funding. All we can do is approve additional square footage. So let me give you an idea. Today, typical construction costs are about $240 a square foot. This project came in at somewhere around $200 a square foot, and the SFP funded us about $152 a square foot. So it gives you an idea of how out of touch the funding is from our SFP partners there. But we'll continue to do everything we can to find creative ways to get these other portions of the project going.
And Ben, just real quick, I just want to make sure that the board understands and to clarify as well, is that there's required square footage for the funding that we received, and so we're not going above and beyond that square footage. We're staying within that. And if we move to only do a portion, we would not be in compliance with that requirement for square footage.
So allow me, Ben, thank you for that information. Unfortunately, that was not an answer to the question I actually asked. The question I was trying to get to is how did the proposal compare to what was estimated by the design team? So it sounds like it came pretty close, since you said that you estimated you would be a couple of $1 million over budget. You came in about $3 million, which is a couple of $1 million over budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is, in terms of what we're going to be doing for the athletic fields, what is the plan, or has a soils engineer, geotech, come in yet to look at the base requirements for the track and field and the paving projects? Because that area is expansive soils. One of the reasons why our current track needs to be replaced is those soils during the monsoons expand, and then during the drier parts of the year they contract, and it just heaves and moves that track all around. And if we don't build a proper base under it, we're wasting our money.
Yes, so to answer your question, we have taken some soil samples in certain areas. We are in conversations with artificial turf manufacturers and installers, and we're going to proceed to get additional testing right under where the new track is going to go, and also where the existing football field is, in order to make sure that we have the right information to all the contractors.
All right, thank you.
Very good questions. All right. Mr. Beach.
No, he already answered.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beach. Mr. Rene Ramirez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, I was very happy to hear about this contingency plan, because I was going to ask that, but you answered that, and I was very happy to hear that, so that we're not getting charged for things as we go, and as people start to see that, you need this, that, or the other in the building. But I was wondering about the parking on, first of all, I have another question. I was going to ask you about the field. The track and field, is this going to be east of our current track and field? Is that, because that's what I gathered from looking at the picture?
Yes, it will be.
And so the existing track and field is where we're going to have our soccer field?
It'll be a full turf field, yes. So it'll be for soccer, as well as one of the things that we've noticed is that we want to have that be a high-use field. And so when you have multiple youth football games or youth soccer games, if the field is small, you wouldn't be able to do that. So the field is going to be now full turf. so that you can have multiple games going on at the same time, and then we'll still have the grass field inside of the track.
And the bleachers that are south of their stadium, and those will remain there?
So we are, that's in the next phase of, and so there were some photos that were not there with the field house, locker rooms, and things which would be in the next phase of the bond.
And I recall that we were going to have a stadium. Of course.
We'll have a new one. Yes, we'll have a new, and that'll be in the next phase of the bond.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted a little clarification on that. And another thing, the parking I was just wondering if in this contingency plan we could do something about the space that's there, Rio Rico, south of the office. You know, Mr. Beach can vouch. It's nice that he's here because we both entered the school at the same time. We can tell you all kinds of stories about what that looked like when it was first a dirt parking lot. That's all it ever was. And but you know, teachers used to park up on top. I'm not sure if you're aware of this because I don't think that you were superintendent when all of this stuff happened, Mr. Verdugo. But teachers used to park up on east of where the current parking lot is, and then, you know, I have no idea why the administration decided that they were going to put up the little Stonehenge over there and decide to block the teachers from parking over there. And so they couldn't use that anymore, and that's, you know, space is at a premium here. And I was thinking, you know, when you think about the way people come in for graduation and how everything is so clogged here, and people are dying to find a space to park close to the front of the school or for all kinds of occasions, not just graduation. It would be really nice if they could pave that little area there. I mean, even if you could park some of the visiting buses for
So if you,
not just
currently where the two dirt sites are on the east and the west of the campus, those are going to be expanded. So that's in the project
as well. Okay.
As well.
All right.
And one area will be tiered, and then if you notice down at the field, there is going to be additional parking where the pool area is, as well as where the tennis courts will be. So we'll have expanded parking down there, which we don't currently have.
Yeah, that brought up the question. I was thinking maybe they weren't allowed to do that, to park there, because maybe there was some kind of building code, or we couldn't pave it because there was a building code that prevented us from being so many feet from, you know, easement or something of the sort. I mean, I know that from having had my house built, there's 25-foot easement, you know, and so I was just wondering. But I'm very happy to hear that because, wow, that would be so nice to have that area paved. So
Jennifer, do you know how many spaces the new high school parking lots will add to the current lot?
The new high school parking lots?
Yes.
Give me a couple minutes, we can figure it out.
Okay.
I don't have a count right off the top of my head. But feel free to move forward with some other questions in the meantime, and I'll look into it.
And that was about it. Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it very much.
Go and stop the man, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, John, for bringing up that question. One of my questions was soil, exactly what, because of other places, especially the high school used to work, because of the erosion, the track, the tennis courts, were constantly cracking and doing that. That was a very good question, I'm glad you brought that up, because that isn't.
Excellent question.
And hopefully those tennis courts, there's 3 of them, the basketball courts, are we going to be able to utilize those basketball courts as tennis courts?
Yes, there'll be 6. There'll be 6 courts total, and 3. The basketball courts will be tennis/basketball courts.
So when they have like a JV match, because I'm hoping that we're going to have an outstanding tennis team,
Yes.
so we have a JV team playing at the same time.
Yes, we'll have the full 6 courts to play.
All right. I was wondering, Mr. Hayes, again, thank you for bringing up about the A plan and the funding. That was good. The seating, what's the seating capacity of our new performing arts?
That was 215 seats.
215 seats. Is there any room for expansion there?
There is not really any. You do have some floor area, but no, nothing planned.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as if we continue to grow, and I'm just saying that another high school that has a 900 seat capacity and there are times that have been filled up with events. So we're looking at, what's 1/4 of the seating capacity? That's why I asked that question.
Yes.
Because if we get to be 1,800 kids at this high school, which I think we would, that's gonna be a small performing arts center.
Yeah, and that's, and obviously we don't have one now, so we wanted to add that while we could. And then if we had, then we would have other land that we could build something in the future.
Okay. Just thinking ahead.
Yeah.
I could foresee that being really
Right,
tight.
right, because we don't want to turn any parents away, because I see us getting out of this situation by next year, to where we have, you know, especially if we have good plays going on, you want even the public there, not just parents.
Yep.
So, bringing that up, and then I guess my other thing is, SD Crane obviously were the low bids, and they've got good resources, a good resume of past projects. What,
So yes, fortunately, worked with SD Crane at probably 3 other school districts. Their performance was good. As you can see, their pricing is good. We've had some follow-up meetings with them on their estimate. They've been very flexible and very cooperative.
I'm glad they're professionals. I was just wondering of their past work of other schools or districts, and whether or not they could say that, yes, they did a great job.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
We have some answers for you.
Okay, so in answer to the parking lot question as to how many extra spaces will be added, as Mr. Verdugo let you know, we're adding spaces in 2 locations. On the west side of the upper campus, in what we are calling the 2-tier parking lot, where it's a lower level that's existing and then a slightly upper level that's dirt right now. In that area, we will be adding 38 parking stalls. And then on the east side of the campus, adjacent to the existing staff lot that's there now, we will be adding an additional 86 parking spaces. So in total, that's an additional 124 parking spaces up at that upper level.
And we did a recount on the auditorium seating at the PAC, and we had 250. So like 217 was a little shy.
Okay, well, it's.
What about south of the administration building? Is there any plan for that?
Yes, for the casinos, for the old.
Where the current admin
Yes,
parking is?
that is another project. And these are all projects that were actually featured at the next board meeting for on the boards. They just weren't quite far enough along to show you all the renderings for. But yes, in the district office parking lot where the old modular building was just removed, that area is now going to be a expansion of the parking lot. As well as we are also working on a rework of the Mountain View parking lot that's immediately adjacent to that district office, that will gain many more stalls in that for that school as well.
All right,
So,
I trust that you'll
yeah,
give us a number for that in the next meeting then.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next meeting, and we will feature on the boards for all the parking lot upgrades that we're doing, because we are also working on a parking lot expansion at Quadamundi.
Yeah, where we had 2 additional lots going on.
Yes.
That's excellent. I'm very pleased to hear that. So thank you.
All right, any further questions? Well, Ben, Brian, and certainly Jennifer, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome, thank you.
I guess we'll see you or hear from you next time.
Absolutely, whenever you need us, Mr. Verdugo knows how to find us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, good night. Okay.
If I could, there's one more item, I think, on your agenda for approval, is there not?
Yes. Yeah, the bid recommendation.
Was the official recommendation of the FD Crane. I think it's a couple bullet points down.
3A?
We can remain on the line, just on mute until you're ready to address that item.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, then we'll move on to item or subject B, superintendent's report. Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. Most of the items that we talk about will be coming up in the COVID and athletics update, so I won't spend too much time with superintendent's report, but I will let the board know that I had the good fortune today to interview our spelling bee winners. So as part of my above the bar interviews, and it was fun to interview them. Very, very bright kids. I even asked them to give some advice about other students, and they were set goals, work hard. I mean, it was really positive to hear these young students talk about that, and I asked them about their experience during COVID and what they liked and what they didn't like, and so it was good to hear some of those things, and hopefully you get to see that interview soon. Because
Daniel? Was Daniel?
Daniel Woodward, and then he was great. He showed his trophy. He says, "This is what you guys are trying to win." He's like, I don't want to bring my other one out because he's like, I look like I'm bragging, but he's like, this is what you're looking for.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great interview, so I enjoyed that. But also we had a recent ASA meeting and a lot of legislative updates, and as things progress, I'll make sure to keep the board up to date with that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Item number C, governing board member report. Ms. Fobian.
Thank you. I just really applaud the sites because they continue to do a lot on social media to keep families and students engaged. I really enjoyed looking at the photos from the snow day that they had, especially the Mountain View one. And it's kind of a delicious opportunity. We don't get that many good snow days, and they did enjoy and stuff. So thank you, sites.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fobian. Mr. Beach.
This is where we just talk about anything current
Yes.
events?
Tournaments.
So it looks like the vaccines are up and running, and hopefully everybody signed up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy. There's 2 more variants out there, and I've read that the vaccine does work against at least one of them. So it looks like we're on the right trajectory, and yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beach. Mr. Higgs.
Nothing to add at this time, thank you.
All right. Mr. Renee Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks to Mr. Estrada, and because I was reading his report, the school report, the principal's report. I do have something to say, which is I noticed that Lucero Vasquez, I didn't know this, that Lucero Vasquez, I just want to give her a big shout out, congrats. Lucero Vasquez signed up to play softball for South Mountain Community College. So kudos to her and RHS, and that's awesome. So, and thank you, Mr. Estrada, for that piece of news.
Thank you. All right. I just want to thank Mr. Verdugo and the gentleman and gentlewoman, Ms. Hogan, that I did get all the SBA stuff for this. And one thing I was looking through about the school board handbook, and what I found really interesting is that ASBA wants us, in order to prove or improve student achievement, all boards are committed to their own continuing education, meaning, getting into event or organizations, joining organizations, because that's what continuing education is, both as an individual and as whole boards. That's right, I just verbatim read out of their book. And what I was looking at then, the 3 organizations that right now currently are free to the district, because I paid for it individually, was the ISTE. And in there was an article about questions about the governance board. So I thought, well, that was interesting, but I'm not going to get into details. The next one was Education Week, then an article from Peter DeWitt, and I just signed up for an online, I don't know if I can do it, but it's called Beware of Online Filter Bubbles. And what it's about is, and I think, John, you're shaking your head certainly, is they had 2 of them, he was a former principal, himself and another gentleman were going on to Google searching, one because of his interest, another interest, they were getting variances and complete different information on the same topic. So what they're saying is out there, we as schools should be looking at, for our kids, how they're researching and what facts they're getting back. Nevertheless, pointing in on this gentleman and Ms. Fovian, that there's no reason why eventually, and I did talk to Mr. Verdugo about that, is why this isn't for all of us. I mean, not just me, because I paid for it, but certainly something that I think we should be looking at. As well as the Arizona Capital Times, I think that I think we're members of that too, or one of our team members is. But in talking here today, exactly what happened today was that the legislative budget saying that they are trying to fund an estimated $250 million for the legislature for full funding for online education. That was as of today. The legislature is looking at that. Again, though I'm not trying to give you guys that, I'm trying to just say is, hopefully that we all agree that we should be joining this based on what ASBA is suggesting as a board to be part of organizations. Because ASBA does cost money too, I believe, correct, Mr. Verdugo?
Yes, it does.
So, with that said, and I want to thank the principals as well, and correct with Ms. Fovian, the social media is good, certainly with Twitter and Facebook, so I certainly follow Twitter. Thank you. It's at least it keeps you up to date what's going on, especially with Twitter, because that's pretty instant too. And thank you for certainly doing our social media as well. With that said, I wasn't trying to take up too much time, but I just want to say, hopefully we can move in that direction. Thank you. All right, item number 3, information, discussion, and action. Bid award recommendation, Mr. Verdugo.
I guess you have EDM again on the line, and so the previous presentation presented, the SD Crane construction 4 recommendation, and so any questions of the board, I'm sure ADM can answer those questions, but the recommendation is to approve as recommended.
All right, this is approval of consent agenda. There's an action. Approve, accept, and ratify the consent agenda as presented.
This is a standalone item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Where is it right there?
Yeah, to approve recommended contract bid award.
Page 3.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. I switched over. Yes, approved recommendation, contractor bid award, formally recommended SD Crane for the award of Rio Rico High School Performing Arts Center and renovation.
So they have a motion on the board now.
Yeah, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
You're breaking up, we can't hear you.
Who's
Then if you sell it.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Can you hear me now? This is Gisela.
Yes.
Thank you. If I may recommend the board that as part of your motion, if you delegate the authority to your administrative team to work with legal counsel to put the contract in place. Tonight you're just awarding the bid, and then we would be working on drafting the contract.
Okay. So we will amend the first motion. And then do I hear a motion to amend the motion as per what Isela just recommended to the initial motion?
Mr. President, I move to make that amendment to my original motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Any further discussion to that? Hearing none, and thank you, Isela, for making that recommendation to us to make things even more smoother for not only you, but everyone else. So hearing none, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Again, thank you, team, for staying on the line.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. So you have to wear reading glasses. I'm gonna have to get some.
Well, we should have basketball somewhere.
This what?
Yeah, we have a basketball.
Yeah.
Glasses. They're COVID.
Well, this thing throws off my birthday too. Anyway, never excuses. All right. Now we're at B, COVID-19 update.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. The benchmarks again continue to be high, and so we want to make sure that we notify the board that we are continuing this week. We made the adjustment to remain remote in distance. And then the February 1st date will be when teachers would be expected to be on campus, utilizing their tools on campus. If the benchmarks again this Thursday are better, that's the hope. And then we are still projecting as February 18th as our start date for hybrid, again, depending on the cases as well as the number of faculty and staff that are able to get the vaccine. One of the things that we've talked to Mike Wassa, Dr. Pena, and Dr. Williams about is that when we do come back, is that we do not relax the protocols, because I think that's the misunderstanding that a lot of individuals have, is that once I'm vaccinated, I'm free to go, and there's nothing. We have to remember the students. Students are not getting vaccinated, and so that means that we still need to, in my opinion, and we'll have to see what happens with the legislature and then the governor, is to maintain the hybrid at least through the remainder of the school year when we do come back in person, as well as the protocols for washing hands, wearing masks, and spacing. So that will be something that we'll continue to bring back to the board as we progress through the vaccine and we start to hopefully get back to having students on campus. With that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Lunderville, who is our point of contact with Mike Wassa and the health department to discuss the current status of the vaccine and answer any other questions that you may have about the benchmarks. Dr. Lunderville?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Like Mr. Verdugo mentioned, we've been working closely with the Santa Cruz County Health Department and Mariposa Community Health Center to start having our school employees receive the vaccine. Right now, it's going well. We started scheduling appointments on Saturday. I started going in and helping them to set up just the call center and that sort of thing. We've been able to register anyone who wants the vaccine in our priority groups. We kind of broke them down into 5 different groups, and our first group is what we call essential workers to keep the school open in the learning space under the executive order. So the first group consisted of around 171 people, and it appears that they are just about done scheduling all of those individuals out of that group who wish to receive the vaccine. We're also working with the Emergency Management Department at Santa Cruz County to set up a pod. That pod will be located at Calabasas. We're also looking at options to have drive-through clinics available for both our employees as well as our community members to receive the vaccine. And I think that pretty much covers where we're at right now, but I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that the board may have.
Any questions for Dr. Lunderville? Right?
No questions, although I do agree with Mr. Verdugo on we can't relax the standards, because even though you're vaccinated, that means you shouldn't get sick. That does not mean you can't act as a carrier.
Right. Thank you.
And the other, just if I may, Mr. President?
Sure.
The other piece that we're working on is continuing to provide our community with education on the vaccine, along with, the importance of maintaining social distancing and all of that. The vaccine does require 2 doses. Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine both require 2 doses. And so and once you do have that second dose, it takes about 2 weeks. And I say about because there's some differing science out there, but between 7 to 14 days for the individual to be fully vaccinated. And and the hope is that you'll reach around 95% vaccinated at that point.
Your body starts to build up a resistance.
Yeah, the first shot is the introduction of it is not a live virus, so the first shot is an introduction to your body and your immune system to start to build up some of those antibodies, and then the second shot is the one that actually, it's neither one are live, but they do react against each other in the second shot to be able to, give you that immunity.
Well, I'd like to say something, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to say point out some stats here. In Santa Cruz County, we haven't had any deaths between the ages of 1 to 19. So it seems, pretty safe for the kids to come to school. That doesn't seem to be the crux of the problem. The crux of the problem is when we start to discuss ages 44 to 64, that's where we've had 28% of the deaths. And so who are we talking about here? Again, teachers. So my recommendation would be that, considering that February 5th is only 10 days away, right? I would recommend that we go maybe just one more week to make sure that all of our teachers get vaccinated, because I tend to disagree with you, Ms. Lunderville, about the speed of this thing. It seems like these guys are moving as slow as molasses to get people vaccinated. Mr. Beach and I haven't been vaccinated yet, and we signed up. And although I did see on Facebook some of my former students who are teachers now were, happy, and they're posting how they had been vaccinated. But I tell you something, the root of this whole thing, there's so much clamor for us to open the schools, and that's what we all want, all of us. We all want to open the schools as fast as we can. But for all the clamor that we have, it's amazing that our public isn't putting a lot of pressure, nor our media, on people to get vaccinated right away. I'm wondering what's going on. They got 2,000 doses, and it's taking forever and a day for them to vaccinate the teachers. That seems to be the key here to opening the schools right away. We need to get our teachers vaccinated. So I was wondering if there's anything that you and your team, Mr. Verdugo, can do to put some pressure on these guys, on the doctors or the medical workers to get us vaccinated right away. Because as soon as we can do that, we can open school, we can be with the students at least a little bit. Yes, it'll take a couple weeks for us to build up our resistance, but at least it'll be a little safer for us as teachers to go into the classroom, be there with the kids. And I really think this is the key. If we could just get that done, we can open the schools and get rolling again and solve all these things that you talk about that bother all of us, like, the mental issues and all of this stuff. And I really see us getting rolling if we can just get these vaccines out and get the teachers vaccinated.
And that's what the plan is. That's why Dr. Lunderville is working so hard with the health department and my question to get that in, so that we can have that point of distribution of pod to get that done, and why we were the first ones to implement a plan. So the plan that actually has gone out was Dr. Lunderville's plan, and so we're trying to expedite as fast as we can to get, and we wouldn't, again, February would begin the 18th, not February 5th.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's great, because that gives us. I think by then we should.
Yeah,
we should
that's
also,
the hope.
the teachers should be vaccinated.
That's the hope.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And Mr. Ramirez, the county worked individually with the school district, so that may be something that you want to address with your human resources department, because we worked individually.
I see. Thank you.
To get people registered. I did send out an email to the governing board asking if you wanted to be moved to our list. I certainly can accommodate that. I added Mr. Kramer and Mr. Beach already.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm just trying to follow protocol, and I was trying to be frank with everybody here, not to take advantage of the status of a school board member. And so I was trying to follow everything through NUSD. And so Mr. Beach too, we both signed up, and we're just waiting. But this isn't aimed at anybody. I don't want you, Dr. Lunderville, to take this like, it's not into you, what I'm talking about. I'm just frustrated. As a teacher, I just want to get vaccinated and get back with my kids as soon as possible. And I'm frustrated. I'm starting to see people, them doing this, but in dribs and drabs, and they need to move quicker. They really need to move a lot faster.
Yeah, and we're pushing.
Well, as soon as we have as soon as the county has a number of vaccines, I know that they had requested 4,000 for tomorrow. We'll see if they're able to get that number. And if they are, then hopefully we'll be able to open up that second pot. But we're ready to go.
We're ready to start.
From what I heard, it's the Moderna vaccine, right? Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
That's great.
We do have capability to receive Pfizer. Well, when I say we, I don't mean Mariposa.
Right.
They do have the temperature control units, but I don't know how that vaccine is being distributed. I know if you go to Maricopa County, we had a meeting yesterday with our association, and one of the individuals shared that they went up to Phoenix to get theirs, and it was a Pfizer. So I don't know how they determine who gets which type.
Well, I'm happy to hear it's Moderna because, as Mr. Hayes has pointed out, it doesn't spoil as fast, and I think that's good. That's a good thing for us. But thank you so much. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez, yes?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Hayes, you
Just to add on to what Mr. Ramirez is saying, I think we also have to keep in mind that we are seeing at this point now a shortage nationwide in vaccines available. And I know that the news was earlier today that they're trying to order another 200 million doses of both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine to be produced post-haste. But unfortunately, it takes time to make this stuff and get it distributed. So unfortunately, it may take a little more time than we really wanted to.
Thank you. Mr. Beach?
No, just thanks Dr. Lunderville for getting all the information out to the school employees and the school board members. I was just hoping the appointments were alphabetically, but unfortunately they're not.
With the name or the board member.
Yeah.
The superintendent takes,
last.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. Ms. Bowen? No? Okay.
No comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then, my final comment is, this is certainly touching on what you guys have said, and I think it was in the Republic. Mr. Verdugo, you should be happy you're not in Dysart. Because I know that board is up in arms with what's going on with all of this right now. And not only Dysart, there's another one that I can't remember. And I think I sent you an article about what Las Vegas is doing, and it's not so much about the immunization you touched on with the mental health. So far, they've sent out 3,100 alerts to district officials, raising alarms about suicide thoughts.
Yep.
So certainly that is in the threshold of, if you get, especially again when I'm saying about, I get this information because I've got this stuff where I get in there. That's why I want you guys to be sharing it, Ms. Bogan, so you can see this. So what's going across the country? It's not so much immunization, it's more, and we talked about this, it's the mental aspects of what's transpiring with this.
Yeah.
And I see it firsthand with the people I work in, where I work. And I've had people coming to me saying, what am I going to do? What am I doing with my kid? Point being is, I know you're doing a fantastic job, Dr. Lundyville, thank you. I mean, doing the best we can under the circumstances. And if we can get into a hybrid in the middle of February, I think that's meeting or exceeding expectations of what I have thought that we would be getting. Because I didn't think we were going to do it until after spring break. But if we can do that, that's even better. Because those kids need that nurturing, right? And certainly, not just academically, but the emotional.
Yeah.
So, good job on that. And I know it's not anything to do with the district. Thank you again for your plan of working with Mariposa. And I know you guys are doing much, much better than a lot of places. I'll say that. We should be grateful.
Excellent job keeping it on the agenda, Mr. Verdugo. You don't see how anybody could criticize you for not being transparent. You're so transparent, and you're always willing to discuss tough issues, and especially, this one's gotta be one of the toughest ones you probably ever face. And you've always kept it out there, and so I don't see how anybody could criticize you for that, and I want to commend you for being so transparent.
Thank you.
So, thank you, sir.
And just real quick, I wanted to touch on athletics. So again, the AIA did approve that, so we've been moving forward with that, and we're still working. I know Mr. Fanny's trying to get the games scheduled and things like that for the winter sports season. And our hope is, whether we have 3 games or more, that we want to at least have an opportunity to honor our seniors, you know, that have been here and let them participate in something. Of course, we'd love to have a full slate of games, but if it's, like I said, 3 games, 5 games, 8 games, as long as we have something, that's the important thing to us, and to be able to recognize our seniors on a senior night of some sort. And so Mr. Fanny is working on that as well. So I just wanted to give you that quick update.
I got a question with that. Are we doing, if we do, are we doing live feeds too with that?
Yes, we will be live streaming, which we've already started with the football season, and so we will continue with live streaming.
As long as we put it on Twitter and Facebook and all our social media.
We'll have it on all of our social media.
Right, just, whatever we can do. Thank you. All right, we already talked about remote distance hybrid, correct? Yep. So we're covered on that? Is that it, Mr. Verdugo?
Yep, that's it for now.
Okay, all right, thank you. Item number C, propose and prioritize topics and possible dates and times for future board meetings. Mr. Beach, anything you'd like to see?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. All right, Mr. Hayes?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
All right, Ms. Bovian?
I have no requested time, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rene Ramirez?
I have none, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I believe it's on, I'm just gonna say it because I did just talk about it, but certainly, Mr. Verdugo, if you can give us some information on what our schools are doing as far as, not academically, but how they're reaching out for the help, the counseling. That's something that I know that we've talked about, but certainly at least how we're addressing that. Just give it to an FYI to us.
Yes, I can do that for the social emotional. And then just also wanted to just make the board aware we're still working on those dates. Dr. Lunderville is working with the attorney to have a open meeting law and board ethics Saturday study session, and we'll get those options to you hopefully soon. Because we want to make sure we get that date to you so we can get that organized. And then
Thank you.
On that day, we'll also be working on goals. So with the board, so we'll work on that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. Now, item number 4, consent agenda. Approval of the consent agenda. Any matter of the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda discussed as a regular agenda item upon the request of any board member. Are there any items on this that someone would like to pull out and discuss separately? All right, hearing none. Oh, no, you bastard.
No, I do. I actually do. I have several. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I do. And that's number 1, approving the last minutes. Number 3, with regard to Roxana Cray. 7, the principal's report, and the last one, 10, e-PARS.
All right. So approving our consent agenda that Mr. Ramirez just tweaked immensely. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with items number 1, 3, 7, and 10 that we will pull separately?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Okay, item number 1 of this consent agenda, approval of the minutes of the regular public meeting, Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that, I was so focused on all this, the issue in front of us with COVID and stuff, that I forgot to mention the handbook last time. I had noticed that some of the translations on the handbook that were in Spanish were atrocious, and so I was just going to recommend that somebody like Dago or Hilda or Ana go over it really careful because there's still a lot of things that need to be cleaned up in there, but that's all.
Okay. Thank you.
On number one.
So that was number one, okay. All right, do we have a motion then to approve the minutes of regular public meeting, even though that was a far-fetched one, Mr. Mears? I'll let you go with it. Because it is in for the benefit of the students, I believe.
Yeah, it's fine.
There's some nexus there.
Thank you, so
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular public meeting. How's
So
it,
moved.
Jennifer? There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, item number 3, approval of non-renewal of Roxanne Gray, San Cayetano, school teacher effective May 21st, who has failed to obtain his certificate.
All I want to know, Mr. Verdugo, is did we do everything possible to help her try to get her certification?
Yes. Giving extensions all throughout this entire year.
Okay, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure that before we voted on it.
All right, do I hear a motion then to approve item number 3?
So moved.
There's a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 7, acceptance of the monthly principal report from Calabasas KA, Cotamundi School, Mountain View Elementary, Rio Rico, and San Cayetano. Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to recognize all the principals for their hard work. I know they always put a lot of time into this, and they probably say to themselves as they're typing, the board's not even going to read, what I'm, but we do. And so I just wanted to praise them for what they did, because earlier Ms. Fobian and Mr. Kramer were mentioning social media and how we reach out and do good things at schools, and I agree with them wholeheartedly. And I just wanted to mention some of the things I read that were really cool. So, starting with Mimi, she does this thing that Cheetah with character, and she mentioned the kids who receive their awards on the announcements, which I thought was really neat. And Mr. Jackson, he does this thing with Feed the Lions box, and the students are recognized by teachers for their accomplishments, and 5 tickets are chosen from the box every day, and the students are recognized, which I thought was pretty neat. Is Mr. Jackson on?
It should be.
So, Mr. Jackson, are you there? Okay, so I'll just move right along. And CTMS, I like their shout outs through social media. Becca's doing a good job there, and they even make personal phone calls, and they highlighted this young gal named Naomi. Good job. Calabasas, Bethany, she does a Student of the Month at Honor Roll Assemblies, and she did this welcome back virtual meeting with the kids. At RHS, Mr. Estrada did the swag bags, which I thought was pretty cool, and I had already mentioned the congrats to Lucero for, I didn't know about this until he put that in his report, and he did this shining spotlight, Mr. Peters, and Beach and I worked with him. We can tell you, he's a really organized guy, very dedicated to RHS, and I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for all that he's done for that school, because he's done a lot of things that he's not even been recognized for. And he's a great colleague, good person, and just a really wonderful teacher to have over there at RHS. So, Mr. Peters, you're good job. And thank you, Mr. Estrada, for pointing that out. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, item number 7, do we hear a motion to approve?
So, second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item number 10, approval of the personal action request. Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, I wanted to mention that I was very happy to hear that Larry Johnson is going to take over the newsletter. In the past, the newsletter wasn't the person running it before it. I failed to mention all the things that have been done with the chess team, with the German program, and not one thing has been put in there, Mr. Verdugo, in years. And the only way the community knew about everything that was going on, the German program, Mr. Beach's son was part of that, and even Miss Newman's nephew part of that. The only reason that the community knew about it was because about our German program. Everything, the 16 out of 20 years that the chess team had made it to the state championship was because of Nogales International. They were putting everything inside of the paper, and that's the only way that the community knew about it, which, I mean, has to make everybody here pause and wonder why in God's green earth, in our own vehicle, media vehicle here, export the good news from RHS. So I just never want to see that kind of thing happen again, and the majority of that time didn't happen under your watch, Mr. Lugo, thank God, because I know that you would have put a stop to that. But I just want to say that I'm very pleased to hear that Laurie Johnson's going to take over, because she is very fair and a really good person. So amen, hallelujah.
All right. Do we hear a motion then to approve the personal action request?
So moved.
Second. The motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, this passes. Now we'll move to item number 5, executive session, superintendent's evaluation. Executive session. No notice is hereby given to the general public that the governing board of Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District number 35 may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of conducting an evaluation of the superintendent and possible discussion of record exam for public inspection. Do I hear a motion to convene into executive session?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please acknowledge the same by aye.
Aye.
All right, we're on to executive.
Anyway, you really should, on the shout outs you're doing, you should do that under the governing board member report.
Okay, I'm trying to remember that, Mr. Nixon. I did do that one for the 7. I left it out.
It's cleaner that way.
Okay, it's just that that's on the consent agenda for the reports.
Yeah.
That's how we had always done it before, so I just followed the way we go.
It's all for a good cause.
Yeah.
That was good.
You know, I mean, it would be like business matters and stuff, I would have
Yeah.
but I'm just kind of,
First one was,
well, all right.
Is anyone calling in? I don't know if they still may be on the phone.
No, I disconnected them.
Oh.
One, but
Right.
it's
I can kind of guess.
but it's a, yeah,
Classmates?
and so it's
Yeah.
a good one.
What day?
So hers is her birthday Saturday.
What's the birthday? 30.
30.
Yeah, my birthday's 30.
My daughter's in flying with flying. Thank you, sir.
Hey, that wasn't recorded.
No.
Was it?
She won't listen. All right.
Okay. Motion to reconvene to regular citizens, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion second, all those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, governing board meeting evaluation. You spoke all night, Mr. Ramirez, keep it going.
It's good. So we seem to have a really good team. Things are real positive and it went well. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned
Oh,
at 6:41.
hey, wait, I get to do mine too.